So I came across this article on Twitter, and it's coming from CNN. And if y'all didn't know what you're seeing right here in this picture, this is the quote unquote trans flag. So yes, there is a Alphabet Academy flag, which we know is the rainbow flag. And then you have the T class who has their own flag. Now, ironically, they have their own flag that's separate from the Alphabet Academy, even though they're under that umbrella. But I guess they're trying to, or they are separate in their own. I don't know. It's confusing just as much as they are. And I never understood what the design of their flag was until at this very moment. So you have the blue that's supposed to be representative of a boy and the pink representative of a girl. And then they have white in the middle. And if I know my color schemes, I believe if you combine blue and pink together, they make white. So I see what they're trying to do there. But anyway, the reason why I'm coming on here today is because there is this bill that just went into place in Tennessee where they say it would require students to play sports based on the gender that's identified at birth. Now, you would have to be very careful with that because a lot of these T-class activists or those in that arena are trying their hardest to reassign people or children that are born a certain way. So say that you're biologically born a girl or a boy. They want to be it where they don't want to identify as a particular gender. That's where that whole gender fluidity thing comes in and everything like that. But the people of Tennessee, well, the political figures down there are pushing back against this, thankfully, and saying, look, it's not fair. You cannot have a boy who feels like a girl play in girls' sports and where he is competing against another girl because his biological makeup and all of that testosterone, and we've talked about this, is going to give him an upper advantage over that of a girl who is running off of estrogen. And estrogen is weaker than testosterone. It just is. That's how biology works. But see, you have these people that are going against science each and every chance they get, and trying to convince us that we are the crazy ones and that they are the ones who are sane. So I'm going to go ahead and read this article and see what else we can find out. A new bill requiring Tennessee students to play sports based on their birth certificate's gender identification is being called, quote unquote, demeaning by activists and proactive by the bill sponsor. Introduced last month, the bill will require student athletes to only compete against other athletes of the same biological sex. The bill would affect transgender athletes who may be a gender different than the one assigned at birth. For example, a student's birth certificate could list the student as female, but the student identifies as male and present as so, or vice versa. The bill's sponsor, State Representative Bruce Griffey, called it a proactive measure meant to maintain fairness specifically for female athletes. Griffey said genetic males have larger hearts and more upper body strength that gives them an advantage in sports. It's not intended to demean, degrade, or diminish anyone. It's just trying to maintain fairness. When asked about those assigned female at birth who identify as male, Griffey said there isn't a simple solution. He reiterated that males have a genetic advantage and that it isn't fair to put the burden onto the girls. Schools that choose not to follow the rule would no longer receive public funding. School officials that violate that rule could face a civil lawsuit and be fined up to $10,000. In addition, officials found to have violated the rule would be fired and be ineligible to hold public office or a school administrative position in the state for 5 years. I am so on board with that first part that you just read. Like, that's them putting their foot down. See, a lot of people are catching on. This is what you call an agenda here. This is an agenda at work. But, of course, those leading the agenda will not see it that way. Now, that was the first part. The next part is going to be the opposing, where the people who are the T-class advocates are saying that it's demeaning. Tennessee's 2020 legislative session begins January 14th, and the bill has yet to be assigned to a committee. But that doesn't mean it doesn't pose a threat, said Chris Sanders, executive director of the Tennessee Equality Project, which advocates the Alphabet Academy rights. By preventing students from participating in sports that align with their gender identity, the bill forces students to be something they aren't and portray a gender identity that isn't who they are. Now, listen to how silly that statement is. Let me read that again, just in case y'all didn't catch it. By preventing students from participating in sports that aligned with their gender identity, meaning that these kids have allegedly chosen to be what they are, which means if it's a girl, they chose to be a boy, or if it's a boy, they chose to be a girl. The bill forces students to be something they aren't, which it really isn't, because they're actually forcing them to be what they are, not what they aren't, and portray an identity that isn't who they are. If they're born a girl, they are a girl. If they are born a boy, they are a boy. XY boy, XX girl. I feel like this is a redundant, around the world conversation that we always constantly keep having. And they keep trying to, let me continue. This is demeaning, he said. Sanders said the proposed penalties in the bill are draconian. That's a very loaded term that he used there when he said that was a draconian bill. Very loaded term. That shows there's something more at work here than your run of the mill. We want fair competition. How is it fair if a boy is competing against a girl? I don't care what the boy identifies as. He can identify as a lizard. That doesn't mean he's going to go live out there with a family full of geckos. He says this is a level of animus at transgender students that is unprecedented. I'm still trying to figure out who can I call at the World Health Organization and see who was the one that got paid under the table to remove the T class from mental disorders and replace it with gaming. Now, this article also goes on where it says similar law already exists in Texas. A law like the one proposed in Tennessee has been enacted in Texas and has already been tested. In 2017, Mac Beggs, then a high school wrestler, competed in girls wrestling despite being in the process of transitioning to male at the time. When he won the girls wrestling state championship, people said he should be competing against the boys, which is what Beggs wanted. But due to the Texas law, he had to play on the girls' team. Just a few months ago, after Beggs won, a Texas lawmaker proposed a bill prohibiting steroid use, a move that some lawmakers argue was to keep transgender athletes from participating in the sport altogether. Beggs now wrestles on the men's team at Life University in Georgia. At the time of his win in 2017, he said he didn't challenge the rules because he didn't want to risk losing his ability to participate. I would rather have a chance to compete than not compete at all. In February 2019, a bill that would have prevented transgender high school students from playing on sports teams based on their gender identity died in the South Dakota legislature. Supporters of the South Dakota bill also cited fairness for girls facing competition from students who were male at birth but now identify as female. Now, another part says proposal goes against NCAA policy. So, see, there's multiple layers to this thing. The Tennessee bill also contradicts the NCAA standard. The NCAA, which governs collegiate athletics, says that transgender men undergoing hormonal treatments, i.e. undergoing female-to-male transition, may compete on a men's team but would no longer be eligible to play on a women's team. For transgender women undergoing a male-to-female transition with hormonal treatments, the policy slightly differs. They must complete 1 year of treatment before they're able to compete on a women's team. Before the year is over, they must continue competing on a men's team. For transgender athletes not taking hormone treatments, the NCAA dictates that transgender men can play on a men's or women's team, whereas transgender women cannot compete on a women's team. So it basically all just goes back to this. Just have the boys compete against the boys, no matter how they're feeling that day, and have the girls compete against the girls, no matter how they are feeling that day. Simple as that. There's nothing wrong with that. But this person, this advocate talking about fairness and whatnot, what's fair in having a boy compete against a girl even when the boy claims that he's a girl? There's nothing fair about that at all. And they know that. I've heard stories where a lot of these female athletes have been getting wrecked by these alleged female imposters. And I'm talking about badly damaged. I'm talking about to the point where if it was a woman competing against another woman, she wouldn't sustain the type of injuries that a man fighting a woman would, especially in that arena of, like, say, boxing or UFC or anything like that, or even when it comes to like track or anything like that, anything, because the male species body is made up way different than that of a woman. And they know that. It's basic science that endurance wise and muscle mass and anything like that, a man is always going to beat a woman. Even women athletes know this. And they're also endangering those female athletes by putting them in an arena where they can get hurt by another man. That's basically, it's almost like legal domestic abuse. But you also got to put some of the blame to some of the women that, like I say, champion this behavior. I talked about it in another video, and I knew it would lead into this. They're invading women's spaces right now. But some women still aren't getting it. Some are finally understanding it, but I think it might be too far gone, which means it's far too late. But shout out to the ones who are in power, who are able to actually push back against this, and have something put on the table for, it not to occur. No matter how much they kick, moan, bitch, whine, complain, whatever. It's all, at the end of the day, you got to define what is fairness, and have a boy that wants to be a girl compete against another girl. That's not fair. It really isn't. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and have the notifications turned on. I will talk to you in the next one.